This is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'd like to show you how I made this card. It's a product heavy card, but it's fairly simple. So let's get started. For consumables, I have a rectangle that's cut out with the third from the smallest stitched rectangles. Then I have a black rectangle behind it, which is 2 by 3 1/4. It's a little bit scant. Basically, I put this rectangle on top and then I trimmed around it so it looked pretty the same. I have a white piece, which is 4 by 5 1/4. Another black layer, which is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Then I have a gold foil piece, which I'm going to use to cut out some pieces out of. And I have the gold foil edge card and envelope. For ink, I have cherry cobbler, old olive, and memento. You're going to need a pair of scissors with a long blade, however long that you feel comfortable controlling. We're going to be using Delightful Day for the flower and this leaf here. We're going to be using Petals and Parcels for this one. We're going to be using the Sentiment Smile from Daisy Lane. I'm going to be using this petal here from Wild Rose. And the largest of the stitched shape nested label dies. Then the third from the smallest of these stitched rectangles. Okay, so let's get started. Let me get this one out. And this one out. Oh, come on. I can't get under it. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take our gold foil piece. Now this is not Stampin' Up foil paper. Ours is a little bit less shiny. It's more this color. But I have a bunch of this that I need to use up before I can justify buying more Stampin' Up. Okay, and this is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. I'm going to put this piece right in the center of it because we're not going to be using this piece. We're going to be using the scrap. And how I came up with this card is I found this scrap on my desk and I liked the shape of it. So I cut it out, the outside of it. This was sitting on my desk and it really looked nice on my card. So we're going to mimic that. So we're going to take this die and then we're going to cut this leaf out of the center of the piece that we're actually cutting out. So let me go ahead and run that through my die machine and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and this is what I have. And we're not going to be using this piece for this project, so let's put that aside. We're actually going to be using this piece. We're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut around the outside of this, leaving about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch from the stitch line. I'm just going to cut around it like that. For the sake of time, I've already done one. Okay. So that's that piece. Our leaf is cut out like that. And let's bring in this piece here. This is the white layer, which is 4 by 5 1/4. We're going to bring in the memento ink and this stamp. And this is from the Parcels and Petals. Pardon me, let me shut this off. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but okay, so we're going to ink this up well. I want to stamp across the bottom of this card. Maybe the bottom of the stamp about that far, which is maybe 1.5 inches. ink it again. Doesn't matter which way you ink it, whether you're inking it right side up or wrong way up, it doesn't matter. Try to line this up. Okay, pretty good. Alright, we're done with that stamp. We're done with this piece for now. Now let's bring in the little piece that we cut with the little rectangle shape. I did it prior, but okay. And we're going to stamp the smile down at the bottom with the memento. And a little bit towards the right side. A little crooked. Oh, not bad at all. Okay. Got ink all over me. Bring in this one. I don't know if you can see it from the Delightful Day. This one here. And I'm going to use the old olive. I'm going to ink that. If I turn it right side up. I'm going to stamp that. There's 3 little dots here. I'm going to kind of line it so that the dot of the eye and those 3 little dots kind of make a little cluster. Okay. And I'm going to bring in the cherry cobbler. And the little flowers from that same stamp set. And they go on top of those 2 little stems there. Kind of line them up with those stems as best you can. They're not going to line up perfectly. The reason I'm pushing on the top of the block is I have a tendency with these smaller blocks not to get the entire block flat on my paper. And it just helps me to get it set in place so that I know I'm getting a good inking. Okay, that's all the stamping. Now I might have used the Mary Merlot in this one instead of the cherry cobbler. See the difference? I couldn't remember when I did it, but they're both pretty. Okay, now we can put this card together. We're going to bring in our card base. We're going to mount this piece that we stamped on top of the black layer. There's not going to be a very large border because it's just an 1/8 of an inch larger, so it's quite a small border. There you go. I'm going to layer this directly onto the card base, onto the card front. Try not to get a thick layer of glue because the cards are a little bit thinner weight paper, and it might show the little ridges from the glue. So nice thin layer of glue all over. Layer that on the front. Okay, now we're going to bring in some dimensionals. First we need to mount this onto our black piece. This is gonna, where I might have just mounted the white piece on and then used the little trimmer to trim it so that it had a nice border. because this is a tiny bit longer than 2 by 3 1/4. The 2 is correct, but the 3 1/4, it's a little bit longer than 3 1/4. Okay, then we're going to put this on dimensionals. Bring this in for placement. Now this is going to go from the top of that card to the bottom of that card. There's going to be just like a 1/4 of an inch on this side, maybe a little bit less even. Just for placement. Come on. This will go in the center of that, a little bit more towards this side. Set it down. Straight. Okay. Now we have two options. You can glue this flat on, and you can do like I did on this one where I put dimensional bones behind it so that it was popped up. Let's glue this one flat on so we can see the difference. I'm not putting very much glue, but I want enough glue that I can wiggle it just a tiny bit if I need to get it down. Okay, center it top to bottom, set it in place. Perfect. Okay, now this one, since we didn't pop this up, we're going to put a dimensional on the back of this, and I think I need a mini dimensional. So there's a small space there for it. So I'll bring in a mini dimensional. Put it right there in that spot. Just, I gotta move it up a little. I got it down too far. You can see it from the front. I don't want to see it. There we go. That's better. Okay, now this is going to go right here in this corner. Now on this card, that's as far as I went. But you can, let's bring in a bow. Again, this is contraband. It's just some black ribbon. I had a bow tied. I'm trying to use up some of my bits and bobs and scraps. Let's do a glue dot. Right on there. There we go. Trim these tails just a tiny bit so they're not hanging off the bottom of my card. Alright, there's a card we just made together. This one is the flat one. This one I added the dimensional behind the gold. And this one I added a bow. Which one do you prefer? Well, thank you for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.